Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is episode 1 of Called to Coaching. I'm your host, Brad Eason. Our guest this week is a legendary high school football coach in Oklahoma, Greg Gothard. He's now coaching college football at the OBU, the Oklahoma Baptist University in Shawnee, Oklahoma. Coach Gothard was one of the first coaches to make a big impact on my life. He is my dad's best friend. He's a great Christian man, a great father, and a great husband, and just a great storytelling dude. Like just one of those guys you always want around. He's got great kiddos, Cord and Kirsten. Kirsten being the only other more obnoxious Bears fan in Oklahoma than myself. So bear down, Kirsten. Shout out. But anyway, I go to Coach Gothard's office at OBU. He's super busy, got all kinds of stuff going on. He takes an hour of his time, or you'll see maybe 40 minutes, something in there, of his time just to talk to me. And kind of we learn a lot about Coach Gothard and his calling to coaching. So I hope you enjoy this episode. The first one, let me know if there's anything you want on any future episode or anybody you want interviewed. Man, shout me out. Hit me up on all the social medias. We're everywhere, so come find us. Anyways, thank you guys for being here, and I hope you enjoy it. This is Coach Greg Gothard. Basically, I'll do this, and that's rolling. So, this is you're the very first interview on Called to Coaching.
First and last.
Listen, so my reasoning for having you first was when I gave my life back to Christ, one of the first people I called was you. I was on my lawnmower in my yard in Davis, and I called you first.
That's awesome.
And that's why I wanted to have you first on this podcast.
Well, that means a lot. And I knew you, when I remember that phone call, I didn't realize I was the first, so it really shows the small pool of friends you have.
That's very true.
Or maybe the small pool of friends you have on this side.
Yeah, that's probably also true. There was probably some people that also called you and go, "Dude, can you believe this is actually going on?"
Yeah. That happens to some of us when we give our life to Christ. There's a lot of doubters out there. No,
the reason I called you first was because you were such an influence on my life.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think coaches are some of the coolest people on earth. That's why I work. That's why I'm
FCA.
I get to do FCA. Yeah. I love it. And so this podcast was really about a conversation, was kind of come up with from a conversation with a coach. And so, like, when I thought about who I want to interview, well, if you look at my list in that notebook, you were number one. So, anyways.
The rest of them are dead?
Basically. And I've got a question later that I know we're going to come back to being old, so sorry.
Right. No, it's fine.
For it.
I wear it well.
So this podcast isn't about this year's team or any of that stuff. This is I want it to be about you.
Okay.
And I haven't heard anybody that's got better stories than Coach Gothard.
Well, I make a lot of them up. But
listen, you've got some really good friends. And then you've got some friends that are so ready to throw you under the bus.
Oh, 100%.
When I started making calls, I mean, it was like, oh, I got this. And then they'd call back a day later. I thought of something else.
Yeah.
But you and my dad are best friends.
Yes, sir.
And so I got to tell you, he didn't turn loose of one story on you.
Good for him.
So, I mean, he's a pretty... he's
because I got some on him, too. He knows he goes, I get to go, too.
It's mutual destruction.
Yes. Yeah, we'll both go down.
So let's start with the young Coach Gothard. I know Kingston, America.
Mm-hmm.
Got a state ring.
So, just, I don't know what all you're looking for, but yeah, my dad was Oklahoma City policeman. He retired in 1977, and we had a lake house at Kingston. So in between my 8th and 9th grade year, we moved to Kingston. But as an 8th grader, went to school at Western Heights, and it's interesting how God has a plan for all of us to get us where he wants us, because I knew as an 8th grader, and my coach was Dennis McAllister, had a huge impact on my life. Most people don't even know him, but he was just a junior high coach at Western Heights. Western Heights was awful. Probably still today carrying that tradition on.
Yeah.
But I knew as an 8th grader, I knew that I was called to coach. I didn't know what it looked like, other than I knew that God had placed a calling on my life that's what I wanted to do. Had no idea how that was going to transpire. Moved to Kingston. Coach Poole became, moved into Kingston the same time I did. And, rest is, I guess, is history. And he was telling the same stories and, preaching that, football, but God comes first. And so I just knew at a young age that I wanted to coach.
Yeah.
And that I don't say that I wanted to coach that, but I knew that God was calling me into coaching, just like He calls a pastor or anybody else to do.
Absolutely.
I remember having conversations with my kids. I don't know what God has in store for you, but if He wants you to be this, then that's the only thing you're going to be happy doing.
That's right.
And so I don't know success or unsuccess as a coach, but I know that's my calling. And
Absolutely.
So that's what I've always enjoyed it. And so anyway, just went to Kingston. We were dumb enough to believe our junior high coach, Bulldog Henry, said that we could do whatever we wanted to do. And
Bulldog Henry?
Yeah.
What a great coaching name.
What a great name.
What a
And I
great
got
name.
a lot of the things that I do in life are because of Bulldog, and obviously the influence he had on my life and the influence that Coach Poole did, but also all the coaches along the way. I mean, your high school coach, Coach Dixon, had a tremendous influence on my life,
Hey,
as well as did
Hold
others.
on. Now listen. I love Coach Dixon. I'm from Davis, Coach Weber.
Oh, yeah, Weber. And Weber, yeah, well, just you're at Sulphur now. I guess that
Yeah.
was my connection there. And that's what happens when you go. So all the stories you may have on me, I may not remember them. But Coach Weber,
Yeah.
I saw Coach Weber, speaking of that, just at every time I saw Coach Weber, if I had a ping hat on or anything other than a Valmy football hat on, he was like, "Oh, you coaching for ping now? Oh, you coaching for, whatever."
Yeah.
So a couple years ago when one of his grandsons was playing All-State game,
Yeah.
he was at the game, and I had a OBU hat on. I said, "OBU?" He started laughing, but Coach Weber, and I leaned on him a lot when I was coaching Cord. I don't know if I ever told you that story, but when I was coaching my own son, it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns
Yeah.
for him or me, and for anybody else probably. And I just remember one of the phone calls that I made early and often because I knew he coached his two boys, and his two boys are top notch.
Yes, sir.
Great coaches, great men. And I just remember he said there wasn't one kid in Davis that wanted to be named Weber, but my sons turned out all right. And so my son lived through that, and so I made it tougher on him than anybody else, or at least I felt like I did.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, Coach Weber, a lot of guys had influence on my life, but Coach Henry, going back to there, I'm sorry, chasing a lot of rabbits.
No, you're
but
good.
Coach Bulldog Henry just really believed in us, and he knew the power of a coach. I would say that I don't have any X's and O's that he knew.
Yeah.
But he knew how to build relationships. He knew how to make kids believe in themselves. And I'd say that he's probably one of the first people outside of my parents that believed in me, or at least made me believe in myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so he just had that ability to instill in all of us. And as senior in high school, we're just ragtag guys, but thought we were invincible. Thought we could beat anybody. Ended up coming out of nowhere and winning a state championship. And I've heard a lot of people tell us that through the years that got to see his place, that y'all might have been the worst team to ever win a state championship. Hey, I have no problem with that.
Still got the ring.
Not arguing, not arguing that at all. We weren't very good, but we went and got it done, believing in ourselves. And
That's awesome. Well,
So-
speaking of Coach Poole, have you ever been involved in stealing a reservation at a restaurant?
Absolutely. So when I'm at it, and I got in trouble at his funeral, I was blessed and free to ask me to speak at his funeral. And that's one story I was going to tell. So one of the best stories of all time. In 1989, first year we were at Velma, so we left Kingston, went to Velma. I had no idea where Valmy was, ever heard of Valmy.
Yeah.
And told my wife, she cried all the way. She's from Kingston as well. And 1 or 2 years we'll be at Valmy, and we'll be on our way 25 years later. Anyway, So we made the playoffs. They were 0-20 previous 2 seasons or whatever. So we come in there, and they basically said, Coach Poole, do what you got to do. So I was thankful he brought me with him. And so we made the playoffs. We played Davenport, famous for barbecue. They got a little barbecue. I think it burnt down. And anyway, so we're supposed to play Davenport, supposed to get beat. We were number 4 team in the district, playing Davenport, number 1 team in their district. We're supposed to go play, lose, get our barbecue. Life goes on. Well, we get there. We're ahead of them. Late in the game, we got our subs in there, which our subs at the time were actually probably better than our ones at that time with Timmy Duval, Kyle Pierce.
Oh, yeah.
Those type of kids, the Crooks, Jody Crooks, and all those were our freshmen.
Dickerson,
Randy Norton.
Was he one of those?
Kevin Dickerson, Randy Norton, all of those are the freshman guys. And so if anybody knows anything about Timmy Duval and that bunch, well, Timmy kind of was one of the first ones that really bought into you do everything 100 mile an hour. And I've coached, it's my 40th season. There's probably count on one hand, maybe 2 hands on the kids that practice and played 100% every time.
Yeah.
Now, some kids play all their games that way. Very few kids practice. And like I say, I could probably think about it and name less than 10 kids that did that. Well, Timmy Duval was one of the first ones that I'd been around that had that attitude. And all those other guys were great players as well. But so anyway, we got those guys out there, and they're sacking a quarterback. And so a minute 6 left in the game or whatever it was, and fight breaks out. So I'm probably 25 or 6 years old. I sprint out there, get between our player and their player, and one of their kids shoves me and tells me what a fine guy I was. And so their coach runs out and gets my grill, and he just had an appendectomy.
Oh,
if I said that right, I don't know. So I'm thinking, am I going to clean his cloth? I'm thinking all these thoughts. And so long story short, referee calls the game. Game's over. We got to walk through the stands. They're throwing stuff at us, whatever. And so we get into the locker room, and our bus is way across the parking lot. And Coach Poole sends me out to get the bus, which there's a crowd, and they're not real happy about.
Yeah,
the
they
deal.
send you out first.
So anyway, we go. I make another coach go with, and we back our bus up as close as I get to the locker room door, and we all get on the bus. Our superintendent, Mr. Haswell, says, "Hey, just drive and stop somewhere. I'll follow behind you, and I'll pay for it, whatever. I'll go by and take care of the barbecue at that place." And so we're leaving. They throw a few rocks at our bus, whatever. Of course, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So my memory may not be exactly. That tail gets taller and taller, of course. But we're driving down I-40, and it's right here in Shawnee, America.
Yeah.
And we pull off, and Coach Poole said, "I'm going to run in here." So he goes into, I want to say it was the Kettle, Prairie Kitchen, it might have Denny's. It's where Denny's is right now.
Yeah.
It's my best recollection. And so he goes in there and talking to the manager, and this is 10:30 at night, whatever. And he, "Come on in, boys." So we all go in there and sit down and eat. And so we're about done eating, and then all of a sudden 3 buses from Glenpool High School pull into the parking lot, or 2 buses. And the manager comes over and talks to Coach Poole. She said, "I thought you was from Glenpool." And he goes, "No, ma'am, I am Glenpool from Valmalma." And she said, "Oh, Chester." So we ate Glenpool's food. And then I don't know what they did, because we're leaving, and Glenpool's trying to get in. So that was a true story. We ate their food, and then we ate barbecue on Monday night after practice. And about
awesome.
Coach Blevins, which is one of our coaches here at OBU, we were recruited Davenport about 2 years ago, and I stopped and got my meal that I was due that many years ago. I finally ate there, yes, and I took a picture and sent it to somebody. I don't remember who it was, but yeah, that was the famous. Yeah, you can't make that up.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Somebody, I think maybe Blake ratted you out on that one about stealing the reservation. Because I think he was at Glenpool just a few years ago. I think they're still mad about it. So
they should be.
No, and then so coming up, your dad was a police officer. Did you grow up in church, Coach? Or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad, I think the way I understand it, they met at Exchange Avenue Baptist Church. That's where we went. It's where my grandparents went. It's where I gave my life to Christ. 1974. I looked at that date the other day. It's like December 1974. So I was about 11 years old. And great church, great upbringing. I tell this story all the time, but I knew I was lost. I knew I needed Christ in my life as a young man. I talked to Mom and Dad. So we were typical Baptists. We always sat at the back of that church. But this particular Sunday, they knew I was going to go forward. I'm sure our pastor knew. So we sat about 3 rows back on the left side. There was 3 rows of pews. Invitation, just as I am, like all good Baptist churches.
Oh, yeah.
1 verse, 2 verse, 3 verse, 5 verses, 6 verses, 7 verses. Mom, look, hey, you want me to go with you? I got it. Another couple verses. Seemed like, on 20 verses.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it wasn't that long, but I finally decided I need to go. And so, Brad, without a doubt, when I let go of the pew and I took a step, I knew Christ entered my life at that point. If I'd have died the next step, I was good to go, because
Absolutely.
I believed that what I said with the preacher, all the little old ladies that come through the line, pinch me on the cheek and give me the Bible verse that I need to remember, and all those good things didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
They did, but they didn't do anything.
They were
secure
window
myself.
dressing on
Yes,
that decision you made.
absolutely. So when I let go of the pew in faith, that's when Christ entered my life. And so that was then. And then, like I said, we moved to Kingston in '77, but I had a good, strong church there that I grew up in. And so just kind of, like I say, having Christian coaches that was preaching what I was getting at home and at church kind of married everything together.
Yeah. Your dad, who by the way right now is recovering from a little fall.
Yeah.
So he is I still say on the golf course, I remember when we played golf at some point, and he had a little short putt and he missed it and he left it short, and he said, a couple more of those and I'll get there.
Yeah.
And I've said that since that day. My kids say it now.
Right.
So, and he's also probably the loudest and most distinct voice in the stands of anyone I've ever heard.
Isn't that funny? Because, and all of the things in life that happen, what I remember about my dad was like, walk softly and carry a big stick. And
Yeah.
so when the chips are down, he was pretty quiet. Now, football games, I could always hear him, especially when I was a head coach. I could hear him,
Yeah.
Whatever, and very thankful that every game I ever played, he was able to go to them. Either in baseball, when I was in high school, we played baseball games at 1 o'clock, and we didn't have to. School wasn't that important, evidently, back then.
Yeah.
So we got out of a lot of school and played a lot of ball, and he was always at wherever I played, even as a coach. Probably up until I got to OBU, probably missed 2 of my high school games. That was my mom was unable to be left, she was sick or whatever. So really, 30 years of coaching high school, all the years I played, even when I sat on the sideline and there was zero chance of me getting a game at Southeastern, he was there. Pee Wee, everything. Been to all the home games here at OBU. Went to my first road game, and I'm sure if he was younger and healthy, he would be at everything that it is. So very blessed, but always walked softly, never talked a lot. Especially when things were tough.
Yeah.
But he was yes be yes, no be no, and so it's rock steady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard something the other day that was I might have read it, but it said teachers are always quiet during tests.
Mm-hmm.
And and people get mad because they're like, I'm in this struggle, God, and why aren't I hearing from you? Like, and you just kind of think, well, maybe he's just seeing how we're gonna do.
Right.
Because you learn best when you pass the test.
Yeah.
And so I thought about your dad being quiet when it gets tough.
Yep. And he always used to tell me, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
The toughest times of my life, call him up, this too shall pass. So this time when he broke his arm, I was going like, Pop, this too shall pass.
Well, good. Well, we're praying for him. So
appreciate you doing really well.
So Coach Poole and you moved to Velma, and y'all had some pretty good football teams.
We did, and we were at Kingston. And I wasn't going to go anywhere else. I was going to be at Kingston till I was done.
Yeah.
And actually, the superintendent at Kingston, James Caldwell, basically told me, no, you're not. You're going to go to Velma. And so I took his advice and went to Velma, and I'm glad that he was wise enough to tell me to get out of Dodge. And,
Yeah.
But yeah, we were really good at Kingston those years. But anyway, moved to Velma, and we very blessed. It was a perfect storm. I remember going back to Bulldog Henry. He was selling insurance in Duncan. Got out of teaching. And it's a whole nother story there. But he come by practice one day, and he just told those boys that if they'll listen to Coach Poole and Coach Gothard on the way through me in there, then they could win it all.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, Bulldog just had one of those abilities to talk to anybody at any time and make you believe whatever he was selling.
Yeah,
so whatever
absolutely.
he was doing. And so, yeah, we just very blessed and was able to win 40 games in a row, which is kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
Randy Norton's head coach there now was,
Mm-hmm.
I remember those guys were freshmen or sophomores when he would have just set their state record for wins at 38.
Yeah.
And Randy's, and there might have been one other, said they wanted to break the record of Winniewood just set. And I remember looking at it in our coach's office talking about, what's he on? What's he thinking? It just shows you that if kids believe, then as coaches we got a chance to get them where they want to go. But it takes the kids that they got to believe. It's not some magic potion that a coach has.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, that was incredible ride. Then we got beat by Rush Springs, which was, they were awful, 3-8. But I said at the end of that game, if you'd have told me, hey, you gonna win 40 and then get beat by a not very good football team, I said, let's go.
Yeah, I'll take the 40.
Yeah,
I'll
let's
take
go
the
do
40,
it.
100%.
So we was pretty fortunate. Coach Lotta, just no superstars, just kids that bought in and just wanted to be great teammates and do it. And
Yeah.
really talented.
So I know you've been an FCA guy
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, and you have a way of giving kids nicknames that stick.
Correct.
And I was going to talk about that on here, but I got a little, you know how FCA, it's a pretty tight circle.
Right.
And somebody might have told me that the man that gives all the nicknames in FCA circle is known as Gator Gothard.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
What's the story behind Gator Gothard?
So, speaking of FCA, so growing up in high school, we didn't really have FCA. If we did, it wasn't that big a deal. So, I started coaching, and 84 was I was a senior college. They paid me at Kings to come back and help. So really, that's my first year. But as a full-time guy in 85, a guy named Mike Whitson just got hired for FCA South Central. He swings by. We become good friends. And anyway, all that. And he said, hey, I want you and your wife to sponsor a bus to Estes Park. And so summer of 86, June, my wife and I married less than a year. We actually ate our first anniversary dinner at McDonald's on a bus full of kids in Colorado somewhere. And we didn't know any better. We're poor as church mice and would go somewhere, let's go. So we had a bus, Leslie and I did. I'm 22, my wife's 18. These kids behind us, they're some of them are a little younger, some of them not that much younger.
Yeah.
And so we load the bus. This was the trip from Hades, by the way. So we get on the bus in Oklahoma City, 10 a.m. on Sunday morning, and we leave there. We go to, and there's 3 buses. I'm going to draw a blank because there's 3 families there. So Larry, good night. I'll think of it. I called him Turbo was his nickname.
Of course.
Golly. I'll think of it in a minute, but he coached basketball for a long time in state, and he's superintendent of Medill right now, and I went complete. I talked to him the other day. Larry, I'll think of it in a minute, sorry. And then a guy named Jimmy Madden and his wife and 2 boys, and then Larry and his wife. So there was 3 buses, 3 coaches. So we leave Oklahoma City, go to Tulsa, pick up kids, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Enid, and it's like nearly 12 hours later, and we're changing drivers in Guyman, Oklahoma. So we drop the girls off at Fort Collins, drive to Estes, drop the boys off, and then when we get into Estes Park, it's 10 a.m. Monday morning. So we've been on that
gosh.
bus. Yes. Yeah, do the math on that. And then we got to get in a van, the three families, with Gary Lauer.
Oh, boy.
If you never rode with Gary Lauer on flat ground, it's one thing.
Yeah.
But he's awful. God rest his soul. The funny thing was, Hoss Lauer went to church with me when I was at Exchange.
Yeah,
and
okay.
his family, my parents and him, they go way back, so there's kind of a deep thread there. So he drives us from Estes Park to Granby, where the coaches stayed, and the food was awful at Estes Park, but Coach Madden and his family, and then Larry and his family, because we just were intertwined for, I think at Guyman, there was one of the buses had some guy was smoking Mary Jane.
Oh, boy.
We didn't know what to do. There wasn't no cell phones back then. So we just threw it away. We figured he needed FCA worse than we needed to leave him there. So we just took him with us and got rid of, we thought of all the paraphernalia, all the stuff. And
Yeah.
And so I don't know where we started down that route. But that was FCA, and that was our first introduction.
Yeah.
And I pretty well until my kids got in high school, I did work at an FCA camp every year.
Yeah.
Somewhere, either Estes Park or OSU or OU or Kingston at that camp.
At Cross Point.
Cross Point. And I believe it was at Austin, Texas, that the Gator Row come in, and so we're playing Farkle at Austin College. We had a camp down there, and Coach Cooper.
Yep.
And he and I was the worst. I mean, we were down to one of us was losing.
Yeah.
So I rolled, and I got ahead of him. He had the last roll. Well, he beat me. So anyway, he owes me one because there was a fountain at Austin College that hadn't worked all summer, or maybe a couple years. Well, there was about 6 inches of water. Well, I don't know if there's water in it or not, but there's a lot of muck and mud and smelled bad. And so whoever lost had to get in there in a whitey tighties and gator roll through that. So I took that for Coop. And then the next year we're at Cross Point, or a couple years later we're at Cross Point. Same deal. We're in that little cabin, Farkle, and it rained, and so there's mud holes everywhere. So the loser, whitey tighties in the mud hole. Where I'm all good with that, and then all of a sudden, somebody goes, "And you got a gator roll," and I go, "Great, thanks." So guess who lost that game? I did. And the worst part about that, I had to sleep. You had to sleep all night without showering. So I'm mud. I got mud everywhere.
Yeah.
I have them pull my mattress off the bunk, lay it there, and I'm sleeping with towels. It's freezing cold in there, and I'm shaking. I got mud right on me next morning, and everybody's going, "I don't believe I'd have done that." I said, "Well, you had to. It's the Farkle coach. You got to do whatever you do." So if anybody ever said gator roll, and I lost plenty of Farkle matches through there.
Yeah.
So that was one that
I'll give you 3 guesses who ratted you out on that one.
Bowles.
100%. That's the perfect guess because that's exactly who it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with FCA, like how and growing up in church and growing up the way you did and having those coaches that influenced you, how has your faith influenced your coaching throughout the years? Like if you was going to explain this to a new coach, like how's your faith influenced your coaching?
Well, Brad, when I came here at OBU, I had an interview with the provost, and I remember kind of a odd deal. So we sat down in his office, knee to knee, which was a little weird, and he just basically was trying to tell me that he didn't want a coach here and my Christian walk here, and it needed to be the same. And I just looked at him and said, I think I've done it my whole life. I didn't try to separate. I just who I am here is the way I am in church, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
So I don't think, and I had a pastor that was with me when I first got married. Leslie and I, golly, names are leaving me. Troy Capps was our pastor, just a country guy, but he just basically said, you just be you.
Yeah.
And there were some older people in our church that was back at Texoma Baptist Church, and the older, we had a really good young adult class going, building up, and we were loud.
Yeah.
And they were griping, and he just said, let them kids be kids. And I mean, we're all married, and our Sunday school teacher, Gary Oliver, was a great man, and just really just told us that you shouldn't be separated. And so hopefully it
Yeah.
hadn't. Hopefully I'm just
Yeah.
who I am here with you, Brad, is the same guy you see me on the golf course, the same guy you see me at Sunday school
Yep.
or in church or FCA. So hopefully I've been able to, who I am is who I am.
Yeah.
So
That's one of the reasons I called you. I called about 4 people, you being first, and it was because you were one of the lighthouses. I think about a lighthouse, it don't move. It stands the way it stands, no matter the weather, no matter the storms, no matter whatever comes and goes. It stands in one spot. So that's awesome to hear you say, because I've seen that through you. I've seen that in you from when I was a little kid.
Hopefully, I mean, like I say, I'm certainly not perfect, but that's what I've never tried to be one way or the other way. I just try to be this who I am. And
Yeah.
So good writer and different. So.
Yeah. So let's see. What time you got to be out of here, Coach? 10 till? 10 till 1?
Yeah.
Okay. I got a good couple questions then. I know we love to golf.
Right.
And I know that's something you and your son do together, and that's what me and my dad do together. And we've played a lot of golf, so I've got some golf questions. One is your favorite round that you played with whoever it was. Like, for me, it was my dad and Trey and my Uncle Brad. We all got to go to Branson. We played Buffalo Ridge.
Right.
It was like my favorite round. The second question is your favorite course. And the third question, it's been on golf Twitter a bunch. People are starting to get their ashes spread at golf courses. If you had to have your ashes spread on one golf course, that's my third question. Where would it be? So first question,
Holy
favorite
smokes.
round, favorite course, and where are they going to spread
The
Coach
favorite
Gothard's
round
golf
would have
ashes?
to be just any time that my dad and I and my son was playing. I remember my dad was a member. So growing up, right quick, my dad he worked.
Yeah.
We had vacation. He was a carpenter as well. So house that I grew up in at Kingston, he built, I watched, I held things.
Yeah.
And didn't want to be there. But it's good times, and so he worked until he finally retired from another job, and then all he's done is play golf, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So he was a member at Buncombe Creek, and so Cord was probably 7, 8, 9. Had a little golf bag, and my pop is one of those, I call it polo golf. You get the ball, hit it.
Yeah.
And so he finished like 3 holes in front of us. Where you
He
guys
just
been?
went on.
Where you guys? Pop, he's like 8 years old. And then another quick story with Pop said he loved come playing at Wild Horse, and it was in the summer one time. Hey, come down and play golf tomorrow. Well, Pop, what time you play? Oh, I won't set alarm. I'll just be there whenever.
Yeah.
Well, 6:40, and he's coming from the city. 6:40 in the morning, banging on the door. You gonna sleep all day? I said, I thought, what's that alarm? Why ain't set alarm? So, just any time my son and my dad was able to play in and out, obviously, been able to play with Cord and just being able to do that, it's fun. My son-in-law as well plays, and so anytime you're doing things with family, I always love being with you guys and Bowles, even though Bowles is awful playing golf, but he's still fun to make fun of.
He's a liability on the golf course.
He's a liability in life. But, he tried to roast me in our big group the other day.
Yeah,
and it ended up being on him.
It was on him. It'd come back.
100%. So, got to have those guys. And but no, anytime. Life is about relationships.
That's right.
And so, football, we're using football to build relationships. Golf, same thing. You're just building relationships. Any way you can. I just like playing golf. So,
Yeah.
Anytime. What's the other
What's
question?
your favorite course?
Golly. Favorite course used to be Dorn. I love Dornick Hill.
Yeah.
But I ain't been since
The big remodel.
the whatever they call it.
We're gonna have to fix that.
So
Come
I
down and
think
play it.
it'd be force fixed. It'd be a lot of trees. But anyway, hadn't been, but I always loved Dornick Hills. Just the history. So I'd say Dornick Hills.
Yeah. And then, so your last question on the golf.
Where do I want
where
my
you
ashes?
want your ashes spread? Like,
well,
for
one,
me-
I'd
for me,
prefer not
it's-
to have ashes.
Yeah, I know.
But if I had that, I'd
say, okay, we're going to burn your golf clubs into a tiny dust.
I would probably say the place I played the most is at Wild Horse.
Yeah.
And there's already weeds there, so it wouldn't hurt anything.
You wouldn't hurt it. No one would notice.
Nobody would know.
When I thought about that question, mine would be Peninsula in Gulf Shores because, one, I love to go on vacation
Right.
with my family. Two, that was like the first place me and Paisley played vacation golf.
Right.
And so now when we go down there, it's not a question.
Right.
We're going to go play Peninsula Golf Course.
Right.
And like I thought, when I heard them talking about this, I think on Bob Does Sports or something, it was hilarious. And they were talking about, and I thought, I think if I spread my ashes out there, I'd be happy at Peninsula forever.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I've kind of figured yours might be Wild Horse just because I know you.
The best country club. I know. I guess I could say St. Andrews because that's the only way I'll ever get on it is somebody take them over there and dump
my
them.
first thought was Augusta because that's the only way I would ever get there. Somebody just
Correct.
sneak me in
Yeah.
there and dump me out
That'd
somewhere.
be it, yeah.
So, all right, last question. We got 9 minutes. How would if somebody looks back on your career, how would you want them to remember Coach Gothard as a coach? All those guys, the Timmy Duvals, the Kyle Palicos, all those kids that I remember just from when they were older than me, and then watching you coach them young guys.
That's a tough question. I don't know. I really don't. I just hopefully just I'd say probably the first thing comes to mind that he loved me.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, just that'd be it. Just that it was not that I knew anything about football or not. I don't really care about that.
Yeah.
Just that he cared about us. He loved me, even though I stayed on him.
Yeah.
Had my foot up their kazoo every once in a while, and I'm still doing that here. Just that, and I think too, if anybody knows you care about them,
Yeah.
they'll let you coach them. You know, and so it's really just trying to turn young men into good men that are going to be good husbands. You know, we can win 40 games, we can win a bowl game here, but the real win is 10, 20, 30 years down the road when somebody goes, Coach Gothard, here's my kids. You know, that's when we're winning. That's the good stuff. And, you know, Bill Bunn the third, somebody was in the hospital, I think, and I went to, I don't remember who it was in his family. And so he was there with his boys, and I think it's Bill the fourth, quad.
Yeah.
And anyway, just introduced, hey, here's Coach Gothard, and they walked on. I said, why you calling him coach? He ain't your coach. He goes, he's always my coach. And so that, whether he realized it or not, that's what you want to. And so my coaches are still my coaches, you know.
Yes, sir.
You have those kids that immediately after graduating, hey, Greg, what's up? Nothing, you know. That's all right. There's people like that. But for me, my coach, Coach West, still Coach West. Coach Henry, still Coach Henry. You know.
Yes, sir.
Those guys are still my coaches, and so that's what I would hope that they were able to say that. But yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being the first. You're not going to be the last. There'll probably only be like 3 or 4 people watch this. Probably your wife and my wife and my
Possibly.
mom. My mom will probably watch it. I hope Mom has to watch all of these things. But thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Well, it's an honor, and I got a lot more stories, but
We'll have to do another one. You might get a part 2, Coach.
part 2.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Wrap it up. Love you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And that was our episode with Coach Gothard. I hope you enjoyed it. What a great dude. What a great storyteller. And most definitely we're going to have a part 2. Listen, come find us on all the social medias. Your TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I don't know what else. Maybe I'll have my wife make a Facebook because y'all know I don't do Facebook. Also, I work for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and we are a support-raising ministry. We raise support for everything we do, from our salaries to buying Bibles. So we raise support for everything. If you would like to support me and my ministry, we would love to have you. I would just hope you prayerfully consider that. And if you would like to do that, down below this video in the comments is my support section. It's a link. It's fca.org/Brad Eason. If you feel inclined to support me and my ministry, man, I would just be so blessed to have you as on my support team. So I hope everything was great, and this is all you wanted. We're going to shoot out some more episodes as fast as we can. So come back and see us. Remember, God loves you. We love you. Go make a difference today. Thank y'all.